All right, the clap. That's going to take me a long time to get used to. It's Radio Free Nintendo time. I'm in your ears. You can't get me out. I'm James Jones. I live here now. It's also July 25th, 2024, the last episode of July, and the first episode of the rest of your life. I'm joined today by John Lindemann.
It's great to be here, James.
It's great to be inside their brain. Guillaume Veillette.
Good evening.
You're not even wearing headphones right now. The voices are coming from inside your skull. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
Yep, you can't get rid of us. You could try. We're still there. We're still there. And if you hear the silence, it's not because you got rid of us. It's because we're deceiving you. We're going to start talking any minute now because this is episode 885, which means I've only got 15 episodes to figure out what the fuck we're going to do for 900, which is probably something I should concern myself with, but I haven't. So
at this point, just push it off until 1,000. I mean, really.
I mean,
why do something
maybe?
for 900? I mean,
well, it doesn't
like this isn't like a hitting streak or something. I mean,
what, you don't know that?
I mean, 900. I don't know.
I mean, Iron Man here. No, it's not. But for some of us,
I know streaks. Don't get me wrong. I know streaks of all types, but I mean,
yeah, the ones you've been arrested for. I'm aware.
It's for 900. I don't know. What are we gonna do?
Imagine if you did wake up and just heard all 900 episodes of RFN playing in your skull.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, the stupid Neuralink from wannabe Bond villain, but just kind of douchebag Elon Musk, actually doesn't work, but which we all expect, but doesn't work in the worst possible way, which is it just plays RFN inside your skull. On loop.
I prefer to think of a low-tech version of it, like the bit in Back to the Future where he's wearing the radiation suit and he's just got his Walkman and he's blasting it into his dad's ears. Like, it's just, yeah. Put as many RFN episodes on a cassette tape as you possibly can and at some unimaginable speed and just direct blast into the head.
Oh. The head was. I think its skull explodes like a pumpkin.
It's like Scanners, I would imagine, very much.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
that.
All right. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I wonder what's the most episodes of RFN you could listen to at the same time, not continuously, but like as a cacophony, before you would cease to let's not say die. Let's say cease to be able to engage in any kind of functioning behavior. And there's somebody right now who's thinking the answer is 1. Fuck you. But also that's very funny. Good job. I'm going to say 3. I'm going to say 3 episodes playing. It's going to depend on the episode, obviously, but I'm going to say 3 episodes playing at once is going to cause your brain to shut down. I should do this experiment on someone else. I need to find someone else to do this experiment on. And I assume exposure to RFN probably diminishes the efficacy of this kind of like oral warfare. AURAL, not the other sound that sounds very similar. But we did, speaking of that, we did get an email that I wanted to talk about that is very funny. And I suspect y'all already know what email it is. And it's not scamming my grandma with Donkey Kong Jr. math.
No?
No.
There's nothing funny about that. It's just deplorable.
We got an email that said, you're pre-qualified for $25,000. Let's verify your podcast. With a headline like that, it's definitely a scam. But at the same time, I had to click it because I would like $25,000. I would very much like I would take 1/4 of $25,000. That sounds great. But it starts with "Hello Nintendo," comma. Which is not a good start.
No.
I hope this email finds you well. After an extensive review of numerous podcasts, yours has stood out as exceptional.
Wow.
Oh, it gets worse. But like, keep in mind, we're 2 sentences in. We've been extensively reviewed, but our first name is Nintendo.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, if you really had extensively reviewed the show, you might do that as a joke because there was a running joke way back when We would get emails about people like pitching games, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing?
You know what? It did occur to me again with the whole, because like, wasn't there something where somebody addressed the site, something to do with the Nintendo World Store? Because it's Nintendo World Report. And of course, with the release of Nintendo World Championships, I was wondering, is it possible something like that could happen again?
That would actually be very fun. I'm going to continue. Our company, in collaboration with leading tech firms, though, we're back in the red flag zone here, is spearheading the initiative, to ethically enhance AI training using conversational podcast audio. At this point, I'm now sitting here thinking, is RFN conversational? Yeah, probably too much.
Well, and what's funny, too, is that if there's one thing that AI does is extensively review stuff illegally, as in, we extensively reviewed your copyrighted material and incorporated it into our, into our AI.
Well, that's what the $25,000 is for.
Yeah, exactly.
We're thrilled to extend an exclusive invitation to your podcast for this opportunity. What we're looking for, we're specifically seeking conversational podcasts. Here's where I can tell they really reviewed our show. Featuring 2 speakers who each speak recorded on a separate audio channel. This format is crucial for our project's success. 1, we have 4 people. I know sometimes it doesn't sound like it.
James, to be fair to the very likely non-people involved in the construction of this email, I believe there was at least one, and there might even have been more than one episode with Carl, where it might have just been Carl and Stan, and they did the one person in one ear, one person in the other thing.
Yes, and it's terrible. Don't do that.
Oh, I hated it. This is why I remember it, because I was the kind of person that would be, commuting with it in one ear, because I don't want to get, completely taken out by someone rushing to get on a tube train or, get run over or any of that kind of thing. But of course, if you just don't kind of correct for it at the settings level, then, you were only going to hear one person.
You just hear Carl?
Or
you just hear Evan?
That would have been, it probably would have been Carl and Stan, what I'm thinking of.
Oh, God, that's almost worse, because you just get Stan riffing on whatever Carl says in no context.
So, if that was probably, 07... It's a long time ago, but it's I can only imagine it's on the feed. It's there, it's part of.
Yeah, they extensively reviewed it. They went back to the archives.
Absolutely. If they started early, maybe. But that's the thing.
So,
I mean, if they were doing the episode where Carl was just reading off the headlines from the site that week, that wouldn't qualify as conversational at that point.
No. So the thing is, no podcast does this, and there's a reason. It makes you fucking insane. Like, when I joke about us being in your brain, if you hear one person talking in your left ear and one person talking in your right ear, that's not how the real world works. Like, yeah, if you're sitting between 2 people, you're going to hear somebody more in your left ear and you hear the other person more in your right ear. But your left ear still hears them, and your right ear still hears the other person. If they're totally split into separate channels, it sounds super weird and super fake, and your brain is literally going to be like the survival instincts in your brain that are listening for predators in the tall grass is going to be telling you someone's coming up on your left. Look for them. It's actually really fucking disorienting. Don't do that. Nobody does that because it's fucking nuts. We'd have to export the audio for them specifically to do that. But again, this ignores the fact that we have 4 people and not 2, which is very funny.
Well, also, only for the last, 16
20 years. But they want 500 hours of audio for $25,000. And I'm not even sure if that's a fair number for any of us. Like, I'm not sure if they're losing out by giving us this money. Yes. Or if we're actually being underpaid for it. Also possibly yes. So my thought was, John, could we come up with 500 hours of just the 2 of us talking in separate channels and say nothing that would in any way, shape, or form assist an AI in being more conversational? Like, just responses that are, I know how to do it. We have a conversation, and then I just take our audios and time sync them by 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're having a normal conversation. I don't know. We'll try to fucking describe the plot of NXT right now. which is complete, absolute nonsense bullshit.
No, I think it should be the least conversational thing possible so that you're working at cross purposes. Like, each of you is essentially narrating an audiobook version of, like, the shittiest celebrity biography that you could think of.
Oh, I was
not
thinking
actually talking to each other at all, but you just sort of take turns to read however many sentences of the respective books.
So I have the novelization of Gex. I'm trying to think what would be another really shitty game from... Is there a Bubsy novelization? Because John and I could just take turns reading sentences back and forth.
I bet there is.
Just sit there and read one sentence, then the other, then back. And just, like, let the AI train on that. Let the AI figure out how people talk from the Gex novelization. I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is not well. So we live in your ears. And we might live in your AI's ears in the near future. With 25 big ones in our back pocket for doing it. Who can say?
That's a lot. It's up to $25,000. So it could be like $15 that we all split amongst ourselves.
It's true. It says, but the subject says you are pre-qualified for $25,000.
Pre-qualified, like they did a credit check on us or something.
Yeah, we did a credit check on Nintendo and it came up great. You're pre-qualified. Oh, this is like, we get emails like this all the time.
It's crazy.
Because the email address is in the podcast feed. It's required. Like, most podcast listing services won't list them if you don't give it an email address, because that's how they use to verify that you own the thing. Stitcher got in some trouble because they just let anybody put up any feed and didn't verify the email address. And then when somebody did that for RFN, I couldn't get control of the listing for like 6 months until I finally just emailed Stitcher, either give me control or take it down. And then I put some BS about filing a DMCA or something. And I finally got if you'd like control of it, we can make that happen. Remember, threats work, kids. So I assume a lot of these people just go through podcast feeds and just email whatever. We get all kinds of ones like, hey, we can edit your podcast for $35 an episode. My immediate thought is, no, that's not true. How do you figure? Or automatic advertising inserted into your show, and it's like, no, I'm gonna pass on that. If we ever do ads, they're gonna be live reads. You're gonna have to hear us fumble through a company's product and then hear us not ever advertise it again because we fucked it up on the first pass. We go back to the old RFN strategy of pay us to not advertise your product, or pay us to advertise your competitor. But, $25K for this. And we give it to you all for free. You should have been paying us $25,000 to train you, our audience, to listen to our dog shit. So if you have $25,000 to send us for the 500 plus hours of content, I would say right now RFN is well past 500 hours of content. I would say we're probably closer to 1,000. 500 hours of content's a lot of content.
It is. That's a ton.
For a podcast? That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So if you've got that, we're probably at about 1,000. So, you can send us, $50,000 through like, I don't know. What's a good way for them to email us $50,000? Just send us your bank account numbers. We'll direct withdrawal.
Yeah. We'll figure out the wiring of the funds.
Yeah. We'll take care of it. Send us your routing number and your bank number, and we'll get the rest sorted.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We'll keep it. We'll take a couple flights, keep it under $10,000. It'll be cool.
I'm not doing that.
Hey, depends where I'm flying.
I'm saying. Well, no, I mean, overall, yeah, the flights will be under $10K.
No, I'm saying, like, I'm going to the Big Island and smuggling back. For financial instruments, I'll keep it to 9,900 and I don't know, 9,900.
Yeah, because something I've learned in the various industries I've worked in, there's a magic number, and you have to report it to the IRS.
Yeah,
and so a lot of like cash only businesses will run lots of business IDs, so they can do all of them up to that number, and then use a different business ID.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sketchy. It's very, very sketchy. And if you're a business who does business with these businesses, you're expected to go like, hey, this guy came to me with 9 businesses and all of them touched the number. You should look into it. But they can't prove you knew that, so nobody does that. It's awesome. This is an anti-terrorism approach, by the way.
It's business, James. Right?
It's to keep people from cash laundering. It's great.
As part of J&J Dream Factory, I would assume that you would be on board with this, but maybe all these years I've misjudged you. Maybe you work with the feds. I'm just saying.
We work on credit alone. I don't want to have cash run through because that's how you get investigated.
Some things just don't need to be traceable. Okay.
But that's the client's problem, not ours. But you don't touch the dirty money. That's bad. You run legitimate business. But look, there's good, safe money to be made in being the launderer, not the launderee.
I don't know. Maybe I have a couple enterprises on the side for J&J Dream Factory that you don't know about.
Just keep them out of the office.
All right, cool. That's fine.
Keep them out of the office.
That's fine. Let's move on.
We don't need to get raided. Again, we live in your skull, and that's let's say we've got 1,000 hours of content. That's $50,000. So $50,000, you can wire it directly to us, and we'll be in a good place. All right. So new business. Well, that is the newest business. Is apparently we're going to become AI. So look forward to that. New business. This is where we talk about games we've been playing, which I should probably get around to doing that again, but a lot's been going on. Besides just my injuries. I just came back from a trip, and I was gone for pretty much a whole week. And I was working a lot of hours. Even though I had the Switch, I just didn't have the energy to play games. So it's fine. I poked at some stuff, but nothing that merits talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and ask John to kick off the business of... Guillaume, how would I say new business in French?
Nouvelles affaires?
Okay. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Wow. That caught me off guard. Yeah. So as usual... I have the newest, oldest business. So, for Switch came out this week. I think this week was Epyx Rogue. Of course, Epyx being the game company Epyx, EPYX, the now defunct game company, with that released a whole bunch of iconic games like Jumpman and Temple of Apshai.
Rogue.
Yes, Rogue. Of course, this is one of them. So Rogue is of course the dungeon crawler. Really the progenitor of games like Diablo, for example, the Diablo franchise, where you are walking through procedurally generated dungeons and fighting monsters that randomly appear. And
it is the origin of the roguelike term.
Yes. And so of course, this game has roots way, way back into the 70s. It was the first game written for Unix, I believe. It's going way back there. And then eventually... some people took it and made it into kind of a commercial version of it and started selling it. And then, some people kind of tweaked it a little bit. And so it's, this is a very, very iconic game. Now, the Switch version is a port of the 1989 Amiga version of the game. Why the Amiga version? I'm not too sure, but it's probably one of the best of this era, of this game, of the various versions of this game. And so this has quite a few quality of life improvements, I would say, because this used to be, of course, the very first game was pretty much all just you're playing on a screen with each room displayed by I guess the best way it could be described would be ASCII art. So
right. Yeah, like that art, the beginning of all the game facts that you've seen over the years, like basically the game looked like it used that. You were playing as a little smiley guy, but like a DOS smiley guy, right?
Yep. Yeah. And and so the dungeons are all basically whatever ASCII characters you have that you would use to create a room, and everything is representational. So this has a little bit, this is not a graphically impressive game by any means, but there's, everything has a little bit of a color scheme, and your character actually looks like it's a guy holding a sword. Still pretty crude, but yeah. So there's a little bit of color to this one, and so your goal of the game overall is to get back the Amulet of Yendor. And then, so in other words, you go all the way down and eventually you find that amulet. And so you go down floor by floor. So you come into a new floor. You haven't explored anything. You eventually uncover the entire map of the floor. If you feel like it, you don't have to. You can also just find the stairway and then go down. And so you go down as many floors as necessary to find the amulet wherever it is, get the amulet, and then you have to come all the way back up. So that's your overall goal. But of course, what happens in between is really kind of randomized. So, you're fighting monsters. So monsters spawn randomly, and these are like things like hobgoblins, bats, but there's also funny monsters like kestrels and stuff like that. And there's orcs, all that kind of like typical fantasy fare. And so you can see those monsters on the map when you come into a room, but they can also spawn in front of you. And they can poison you and do stuff like that. And there are traps that you can see on the map. Some of them you don't. Some of them you have to detect. There's also hidden doors. It's one thing I've ran into where you'll uncover seemingly everything on a map. But of course, every floor that you're on is contained within the screen that you're looking at. So it's pretty obvious when there's a hidden door because there's just a big spot on the map that is undiscovered and there's no obvious way to get to it. There's no open door or anything like that. So you're moving through these rooms, and usually each room has a couple of red doors on it that you can go through to go to the next part of that floor. And if you can't find any door, I mean, if 3/4 of the map is still undiscovered and you can't find a door to get into that area, well, obviously there's a hidden door. So you have a search function, and you have a couple of things. This is since this game was started on PCs, a lot of it is kind of keyboard-based control originally. So there's a couple of improvements and enhancements to kind of get around that. So you have a couple of radial menus. One of them is just a bunch of letters to let you know when, because the game has kind of rolling text up at the top, just like you would on a PC if you played it. And it says, you have encountered a hobgoblin. The hobgoblin has hit you with an excellent strike, which is an extra strong attack. And then at the bottom of the screen, it has kind of your vital statistics, your strength, your kind of hit points, and a couple of other things. And so that up there at the top in that sort of dialogue that has a running commentary of your game, sometimes it'll say it's very much like the old text would have been, where it's like, hit A to do this, hit B to do that, and then you can bring up the radial menu and then select the letter, right? So they've kind of retained that sort of old school feel to it. They haven't really tried to change it too much. So and then there's a lot of other things though that make it quicker, because on the original PC version of the game, you would have sat there and you would have just hit tap, 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 tap. Anytime you wanted to move, it would just be, you're just sitting there tapping a directional button on your keyboard. But in this case, there's a couple of things that you can do. And they probably had this in the Amiga version too, where you can hit a key combination and run, so you can kind of go to the next logical point. So if you're at a doorway, the way it works is that you open a door and there is a hallway that connects you to the next room. And so there's kind of a logical beginning point and an end point for that hallway. So if you hit the left button and then push push whatever direction you want to go in, your character will just run all the way up to the next kind of node, so to the next door, and then you can walk in there. So you can really get around these dungeons quite quickly, when in the original you would have had to sit there and just move literally square by square by square. So there's a few things like that just make it easier to traverse. And frankly, doing it any other way would probably drive me crazy. Once you get pretty adept at it, you can move through floors pretty quickly. So I think the furthest stuff made it down is, I think, floor 7. I haven't played too much of it yet, but I think you randomly, when you create a character, you randomly get assigned a certain level of strength, and up to 16. And I think the first character I rolled, I think it generated at 16. So I think I have max strength. So my character is pretty good. But you can
Don't lose that character.
Yeah, I don't want to lose that character. But the thing is, you can save your game, right? So I think in the original version, you were just playing it, couldn't save your game or anything, right? Yeah, that's it. In this one, you can, but you can kind of disable that. You have normal runs where you can save your game, and then I think you have Iron Man runs where I think you can only save your game when you quit. I haven't done an Iron Man run yet, but I think you can only save your game when you quit out to the title screen, but you can't manually save. So, yeah, so the Iron Man runs, or you just can't save your game at all. I don't know. But they have a normal, the normal, game mode and then the Iron Man game mode. And they both have leaderboards, separate leaderboards. I'm currently, number 52 in the world. I'll have you know. So, of course, there's probably about 100 people that play this game. But yeah.
I'm so surprised that you're, well, maybe I shouldn't be, but yeah, like you haven't been exactly, like playing like Etrian Odyssey or kind of like dungeon crawler, but I guess, yeah, like the Diablo connection makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the game I really want to play, and maybe this is just a little bit of a, stopgap for that, is eventually I really want to play Wizardry Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, but I don't really want to dive into that like right now. I don't know.
Right.
It's just, that game is going to be a lot, and I feel like it's something where I'm going to have to set aside some time for it to really figure it out, just because from what I've seen, some of the how-to videos for that, it's ideal if you have kind of, just because your characters can permanently die, it's best to have probably, maybe 10 characters running at any one time, or 12 characters running at any one time, and so you can have a party above ground and then a party, down below, so in case anybody dies, you can have the other party go in and get the dead characters, so you can try to resurrect them, but then some of those characters can't be resurrected and they die permanently. That game is just, there's just a lot there with that game that I don't really feel like getting into right now. But eventually I will do it. Eventually I will pick up that game and start playing it. So this is very much in the same vein where, you're kind of just going and even though it is procedurally generated, and I don't believe Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord is, I think it's actually like you can map it out. There's 10 levels in that dungeon.
It would have been hard to do because when you procedurally generate, you have to make sure it's not unbeatable, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah. So, it's an interesting little game. Certainly it plays, really well on the Switch, just for the standpoint of it's a great game to just play on the go, right? Super simple. Mm-hmm. You save whenever you want, pick up and keep going. And if your character dies, so what? You just load your game again and just see how far you can go.
Yeah, and I see on the eShop page that it actually has the manual, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the manual's pretty good.
I wish that more old games just had the manual for you,
Yeah, the manual's pretty good. It explains the whole thing, and what I like about it is, and a lot of older games did this, where because there wasn't, you saw like for example, the original Zelda had a manual very much like this, where because the games weren't graphically impressive, the manuals always had a story of some sort, like the backstory, to kind of fill in the lore and make the game world seem more grandiose than it actually was. And that instruction manual certainly does. It talks about, I don't have a name, so for now just call me the Rogue, but this dungeon has been around for thousands of years and blah, 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 blah. And it talks about, the wizard that stole the amulet and all of this kind of stuff. None of which even has anything to do with what you actually see in game, because the game is literally just a bunch of rooms and a guy walking around. There's no text, there's no story, there's no nothing, right? The interface is, you have, actually it's pretty handy, because what they did is they made pretty good use of the space around the playing field, and it has all of the different controls that you can have, so you don't have to go into a control menu to see how you do everything. And this is a game where the controls are a little bit awkward, because they're taking the keyboard and mapping it to a controller. So,
right.
It would just be a little bit, if you didn't have that reference there, it would be sort of like, man, how do I do that again? Oh, right. So it's right there on the screen for you at all times. So that's handy. And the music is very ominous and really kind of adds to the experience. It does repeat quite a bit, but it's pretty good music. So it's just.
What is the music? Does it still sound like it's being done on like a sound blaster or whatever they would have used back then?
No, it's been redone. It's new music. Yeah. Yeah. But I think the only thing
I'm kind of bummed by that. I'd almost like to hear it played on like whatever the fuck they were able to get out of a. I don't. What did this originally come out on?
Oh, I mean, I don't even know. Probably it would have been. I mean, in terms of modern computers, I mean, it probably would have came out on the Apple II and everything.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, it's been on so many different
Atari ST or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the Amiga version, so it would have been cool if they would have included the Amiga music in there, if there was any. That's the thing. There may not have been music before. There probably wasn't.
Oh, that's true.
Right? It's this is such a primitive game that came out so long ago that there was no music. I'm sure the Amiga one wouldn't have had any. I mean, this has been released on the Amiga, the Amstrad, Atari 8-bit.
Oh yeah.
Atari ST. You sound like you enjoy that a little bit too much, James.
But like, look, if it's on the Amstrad, it's going to be high quality and not at all like a goddamn nightmare to look at.
Not at all terrible. The Commodore 64, the CPM. What is that? What's the CPM?
The CPM. I don't. John, you've done it. You found a home computer I've never heard of.
The CPM. Originally standing for Control Program / Monitor, and later Control Program for Microcomputers.
Holy
is a mass market operating system created in 1974.
For the Intel 8080. Oh my god!
By Gary. Well, yeah. That's the thing. This game
by a dude.
This game originated in 1974. So that's when this was written originally.
This is one of those operating systems where it says it was created by a dude.
Yes, just a guy.
Just a person.
Yeah. Yep. So the CPM, MS-DOS, Macintosh, the Switch, the TOPS 20. What on earth is a TOPS 20? Like this stuff is like this was literally written for a mainframe using punch cards.
Well, so you say that the TOPS 20 is a mainframe system.
It's a mainframe system from 1976.
Yeah, so it was mainframes and terminals. I'm familiar with this one for some reason.
Yeah. Also came out on the TRS-80, Tandy.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Jesus.
Good stuff.
Tandy, go buy it.
Unix and the ZX Spectrum. So
that's it. We need the specky version.
Yeah. So
get me them color stripes.
So this particular version, I think this was kind of the commercial version that was released in. Well, this version is an updated version of the original commercial version that was released in 1980. But this was originally written in like 1974 for Unix for play on mainframes, pretty much.
Oh yeah,
like
I'm looking at Spectrum Rogue, and this is the version we should have got, because this looks like dog shit.
Oh yeah, it's like your character is like an @ sign and stuff like that. Like it's like wild, right? I mean, but it really was taking. It really was taking something like a computer that was not meant to play games on and making a game out of it, right? Like, I mean, this is at the very, very beginning of video games, period. When people were just trying to create something cool to play in their spare time. These really genius computer programmers who were like, I like to play D&D in my spare time. I want to play something that's kind of approximates D&D. So.
Yeah. It's funny because this was probably written in BASIC originally.
I don't even know. I don't. I mean, for Unix, no, it wouldn't have been written in BASIC.
Oh yeah,
it would. Yeah, it would have been
written this in.
I think it was written in assembly, probably.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, boy.
Oh man, but like it is wild that this thing that you're playing it right now,
mm-hmm.
and is it does does the stuff that made it enjoyable still shine through?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tried and true concept, right? I mean,
what is now, but at the time.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, it was brand new, right? So.
Well, I mean, I guess really they were converting Dungeons and Dragons. Like, you kind of hit it.
Yeah.
But even then, Dungeons and Dragons wasn't very old.
No. When was D&D created? That was from the 70s.
I want to say it was like 73, 74.
Yeah. Yep.
It can't be that far off from there.
Yeah, it was 74. Yeah, I think it was first. It was first published in 1974.
So this game. So Rogue came out when?
This version came out in 1980. However, it was first. Oh man, we're gonna go back here.
Let's see. It says 80.
Yeah, but it says Rogue was inspired by text-based computer games such as the 1971 Star Trek game and Colossal Cave Adventure, released in 1976.
Colossal Cave Adventure.
Along with the high fantasy setting from Dungeons and Dragons. A couple of UC Santa Cruz students worked together to create their own text-based games, but looked to incorporate elements of procedural generation to create a new experience each time the user played the game. Yeah.
That's nuts.
It is. Yep. Yeah, actually, I mean, it was originally in the Berkeley software distribution. Like, this was automatically included in there. Yeah. Yep. For anybody that doesn't know that's a flavor of the Unix operating system. So this was actually built into the Unix operating system, or at least a fork of it at some point.
I'm looking at Colossal Cave Adventure for the PDP-10 mainframe.
Yeah.
Man, 77.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fascinated by this. Oh, go ahead.
No, there's just, I think that there's some sort of remake. I saw it on Xbox, like headed by Roberta Williams, maybe?
Of Rogue?
No, Colossal Cave Adventure.
Of Colossal Cave Adventure? Did Roberta Williams work on Colossal Cave Adventure?
I don't think so, but she's doing some sort of... let me check my...
Because Colossal Cave Adventure has got one dude listed as the developer.
Yeah.
Colossal Cave 3D Adventure, family adventure video game by Roberta Williams.
But she just likes somebody else's game.
This is why I play these games. It's because the backstory of these games is completely fascinating. Because this was a time period when games...
What the fuck even is a game?
Well, there was no concept of games, but also those games could be made by a single person. Like, even up into the Atari 2600 days, you had a single person writing games like Pitfall, for example. That was written by a guy.
Yeah. Activision had a dude who wrote like 5 or 6 of their most famous games.
Yeah.
He was just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I know she has a role in Mystery House because Ken Williams programmed it. I think she did the art. Which means she drew the box cover. Which is a game that was inspired by it, but I don't know that she worked on that one. Oh my god, I'm looking at Mystery House now. Jesus. We just need to do this. This is obscene.
Yeah. I think Mystery House actually inspired an Atari 2600 game. I think it might have been maybe it was Adventure? Or
Sure. Adventure's that weird one where it was supposed to be. Actually, it might have been 3 games. I don't remember. It's like, you could win treasures if you completed it fast enough. I was fucked up. Some weird shit happened in the Atari era.
Yeah, Haunted House for Atari 2600. I don't even know. Again, that's one of those things. I don't know why I know that, but I do.
Yeah. I mean, you were a full-grown adult when it came out, so that's probably part of it.
Of course. Well, it was my Twilight years.
Like 40 at that point?
Yeah, it was my Twilight years for sure.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Man, that sun needs to set a little bit faster. Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
We are in, again, as to reiterate the earlier part, we are in your brain talking about games from 20 years before you were born. Congratulations to the audience who now we live in your brain rent free, as the kids say. And by kids I mean like 40-year-olds. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's all great. But yeah, so that's Rogue.
I love that we spent 30 minutes talking about fucking Rogue.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I
love it.
Yeah, it's an interesting little game, and it's a fun diversion, right? That really stands the test of time. And, it's pretty cool because I think just the Amiga version of it is kind of neat in and of itself. Like, it has a very neat title screen. that because it uses the title screen from the Amiga version.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. It's like some neat pixel art. But yeah, I mean, it's $8 and it's, it's always a different game every time you play it, and you can just have a run going at all times, and you can have several runs. You can have a bunch of save slots with different runs, and you can name your character, and so there's, and it's funny because on the leaderboard, it has not only the name, the person, the person's username, but it also has the name of their character, and there's like, characters that are named like Fart Stink and stuff like that. So everybody's keeping it classy on the Rogue leaderboard.
That was also like those mainframe games. That was kind of the fun. Like I grew up after the mainframe era, but schools didn't replace their PCs as frequently as they do now.
Mm-mm.
And so when I was in school, early school, they still had some of these. Like the computer lab was still running these LC2s that were tethered to a master computer. And yeah, like some of the mainframe style games that were on there, like you just got to see what other people on the instance were writing in the Oregon Trail when a family member died, what they were writing on the tombstone.
Yeah.
And it was just like, fourth graders writing things like, "Here lies Timmy. I'm glad he's dead." Just like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
what the fuck?
That's what this does is when you die, it shows your tombstone, and it says, "Here lies," and then it shows your character name, and was killed by a hobgoblin 2024. And then it takes you back to the title screen. So it's a funny game.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm dumbfounded this is the thing, but it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. As soon as I saw it there, because I checked the Nintendo, we get the press releases every week from Nintendo that details everything that's released that week on the eShop, and it's like a voluminous list every week. There's like 60 games just listed. So, usually
and 56 of them are AI generated anime shit.
Yeah, and then every week there's like another Arcade Archives release of a terrible game. But yeah, Epyx Rogue. Anytime I see the word Epyx, EPYX, I'm like, what is this? Because there's always something cool coming from them, even though they probably haven't been around since like the late 80s. But I don't know when Epyx actually went defunct. They probably got bought by.
Something happened with the Lynx, didn't it? That was basically their system, the Lynx.
Right.
Yeah.
But then Atari kind of got it out from under them somehow, and I don't know what happened from there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you had the opportunity to release the Lynx, you can't afford not to. Like, it's you got to get your hands on that. Yeah, because Epyx wasn't originally a games company. They transitioned over. 1993 is what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, they were founded in 1978. Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy. 46 years ago is Automated Simulations.
I forgot that there was like the Epyx collection on the Switch. So if you want to play California games, if you want to play Hacky Sack on your Switch,
fucking Hacky Sack. John, a California games enthusiast.
I love California games. I hate that Hacky Sack is such a pain in the ass, but BMX is great. Surfing is great as well.
Also, you get to watch the surfers just die if they fail. Like they're just gone. Yep. They're dead.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
It's a big ocean, James. They just disappear.
It's a big. It's such a big ocean that John. Do you know where surfing? One. Did you know surfing is part of the Olympics now?
I actually didn't know that. That's pretty
and
cool.
Two, do you know where the Paris Olympics is hosting surfing?
Let's see.
It's some French territory or something quite far away, right?
Okay. All right.
It's Tahiti.
Tahiti, really?
Yes. Which is roughly, I'm gonna say roughly 4,000 miles away. Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
I love France, and no, this is a core part of France, 4,000 miles away. Why do you ask?
Specifically Paris. No,
that's right.
It's the Paris Olympics, it's not the French Olympics, isn't it? So
it's true. Look, Paris has a lot of suburbs, and that is a very far suburb of Paris. I believe they're staying on a very large boat they converted into dorms. It's very weird. But
It is the boat cardboard.
No, it's not, sadly.
You can't easily recycle it after they're done.
If you were going to tell me where you want to spend the Olympics, yeah, I'm going to pick the Tahiti option if that's possible, please, and thank you.
Agreed.
I'm looking at they went bankrupt in 93. Epyx, not Tahiti.
Yeah. I wonder who owns the rights to them.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The Epyx, they had some great joysticks too. Nice.
They did. So apparently the British publisher System 3 had acquired the rights to use the license for some games, such as California Games and Impossible Mission. Only the finest.
Yep.
Bridgestone Media Group, which doesn't even have a link in Wikipedia. That's definitely reassuring. I'm sure things are great. 8 employees managed to survive out of 145. That's brutal.
Bridgestone.
That's brutal. So that they didn't make the transition well to the NES. They didn't like Nintendo's business plan of we're going to limit the number of games you can release on the system. They were intent on flooding the market, which Epyx kind of did a little bit of that, but their peers did a lot of that. And so they decided they were going to make their own system. It went really well, which is why you all know the Epyx game system. That plan definitely didn't backfire at all in the slightest.
I'm looking at the website for Bridgestone Media Group, and they basically make or distribute B movies, such as Hee Haw Farm.
No.
Let's see. Jack London's Son of the Wolf, Bigfoot, Grip of the Monster. There's a lot of crap here.
Are you sure those are B movies?
You're right. I mean, that's being kind.
Are you being generous?
Yeah, this makes me sad. Yeah. Content buyers. I'm interested in licensing content from BMG. The fact that I would have to pay this company to get access to anything from Epic just makes me sad. Yeah. But there you go. That's what happens. That's what happens when a company runs out of money and the vultures fly in. So. But all of that aside, Epyx Rogue. It's a cool little game. So for $8, you could do a lot worse.
And I saw on the eShop descriptor it mentions options for the soundtrack. So I assume perhaps that original Amiga soundtrack is one of them, but certainly there should be some choice there by the sound of it, unless they're not living up to their obligations based on what they promote it with.
Yeah, let me take a look. I just actually did pick up my Switch and check it, and so in the options here, there's actually a few options you can look at. You can change the display filter of the game so it has soft to make the images look soft, CRT to make it look like you're playing on a CRT monitor, and then it has just a normal one. I prefer actually having no filter on rather than soft or CRT. And then it has, you can choose whether or not you have the on-screen controls displayed, and for soundtrack, it just has epic music, dark music, or dungeon ambiance. So
that sounds like they just licensed some music from a duty-free license thing or
whatever. Probably.
That's not what I would have been hoping for, but
yeah,
like they went to the Google Sound library.
Yeah,
I really wish they had an 8 basic colors mode, so you can get that authentic Spectrum experience.
Yeah, it would be great.
You get black, blue, red, magenta, green, teal, yellow, and white. That's it.
Well, that's the cool thing about just talking about wizardry. You can actually have the original Apple II version playing down in because it is built on the original code, and so you can flip back and forth between the updated version, the remastered version of the game, or the old Apple II version of the game. And I think you can actually have the Apple II version of the game playing in a little window down on the bottom right of the screen if you want. So it's really cool. That's really well done.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's really well done.
I do want to see the Mattel Aquarius version. Come on, somebody port it to the Mattel Aquarius. I'm just flexing by naming microcomputers people have never heard of. That's where I'm at right now.
But you could play this. You could put this game on anything. So.
Oh yeah. If you've never seen the Aquarius, John, you should look because it combines the Mattel's passion for video game controller design
and really acumen at microcomputing as well.
Yeah, with their microcomputing skill set.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like you're going to fax somebody and then also call them on a handset that you would take out of a football you got from subscribing to Sports Illustrated. It's truly a nightmare.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I do have a football phone from Sports Illustrated from like the 70s.
Of course, and you probably talk on it while you're watching the Stars of the NBA video from Sports Illustrated.
I received it recently from someone who got it at the time. It's got the Doritos logo inside if you open it up.
Damn, that's awesome.
It's great.
That's awesome.
It is actually kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the thing is though, now you can't use it because there's no landlines left. So
but I could rewire it to work as the phone I use for this episode because definitely the microphone and speaker are going to be high quality.
Yeah, for sure.
If I recorded an episode on the Doritos Sports Illustrated football phone, I think we'd have to end the show. I think that'd have to be the last episode of our.
There you go. Forever. That's episode 900 right there.
Episode 900, the one James records it on a football phone.
Yep.
Fuck you, Dorito Pope. I'm the captain now.
But the thing is, though, that would be the 80s Dorito logo, though, right?
Now.
That's the whole thing. It's like...
Oh, yeah. It's the old logo.
Yeah, it's the old Doritos logo from the 80s. Yeah, that's cool. I approve.
I'm the pontiff now. Shit hits so much harder than I'm the captain now.
You see that black smoke? That's me. That's all me.
Hold on, I'm just going to go do a light heresy with my Doritos football phone. I'm going to make a moderate schism. All right, we're going to take a break here because we're at about an hour. When we come back, we're going to do some more new business, and that's probably going to be the show this week. So please stay tuned. We return to the space between your ears. We never left. We were always there. The quiet was just to make you think we'd gone away, but we're still here.
Lurking like a hobgoblin in a rogue dungeon.
That dungeon is shaped like a skull, which is very much something from an early PC computer game.
Yep.
Or a recent Zelda game. And we're going to do some more new business. And I'm going to let Guillaume, who regaled us with the French pronunciation of new business, go next.
Sure. Well, been kind of all over the place these past few weeks because Karen and I have we don't have any new beat 'em up to play together, so we've been revisiting past ones, and some of them I'm not sure if we've ever talked about. But we played Streets of Red, which is a different from Streets of Rogue, which is a roguelike, I guess, but it's not a Streets of Rage roguelike, which you'd be forgiven if you thought that's what Streets of Rogue was. It's more of a twin stick shooter, it looks like. But Streets of Red is a non-roguelike beat 'em up that's very, very much trying to appeal to the gamers. Perhaps a little bit too much.
Capital G gamers?
You know, like the game starts with a fake FBI or, warning, like gamers don't do drugs. We power up. And it's like, wow, that's almost a joke. Good job. The characters are various, takes on various classic video games, like I guess the basic story is that you're at Nut Packs, and there's a zombie outbreak at Nut Packs, and so like these various geeky stereotypes turn into their favorite video game characters and go beat up some zombies. I don't know. I'm not really paying attention. There's a fake Navi from Zelda in there that turns out to be evil. It's very obvious from the beginning. It kind of pulls it tries to pull a Bravely Default on you, kind of, at a certain point in the game. But yeah, like you've got the girl who turns out to be kind of a Terra from Final Fantasy 6/3. Like she's got her mech, and she uses spells, and you've got a Shovel Knight in there for some reason. Lots of references to contemporaneous indie games. Like you've got Binding of Isaac bosses in there, and you've got Isaac sometimes in the background. You've got like all the one-liners that the characters shout are from various video games, or like some geeky reference. Like I'm pretty sure there's like the cake is a lie in there. And at some point, I can't remember. So I haven't followed the person who did Jimquisition. Like I haven't followed their career in a long time. I know that they've transitioned. I don't know if it's they or she now, but back from before the transition, like there was this line from the Jimquisition, like "Thank God for me." So Jim from the Jimquisition is a boss in this, and says the line.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there are references to other like Destructoid writers in there. It's the less you know about the references, I think the better it will be for you if you play through this game, because it's not too bad. Like it's got a nice little system to it. You don't actually there's no jump button, which is kind of unusual for this type of game. Instead, what you got is basically just like your normal attack to start a combo, and then you press the powerful attack with a direction or no direction, and that will trigger like one of 3 different moves that will use your stamina bar. And when you want to use those moves to finish off, to kill the enemies, basically, because that's the only way that they're gonna give you money. And at the end of each stage, you have to use that money to purchase upgrades. And then at a certain point in the game, it asks you to spend a lot of money to be able to get to the actual ending, like to access the last few final stages. So it's an interesting system. So you can choose like which set of stages you do first. Like there's like the train, the street, the sewers, and some other place I can't remember. But the order that you do them will determine how many levels in that set of levels you do. Like if you choose the train first, you do the first train level, and then you face a version of the boss for that set of levels. And then you're done, and you can choose the next set. But then, like, in that next set of levels, you're going to play, like, 3 levels of the street set of levels, etc. So, like, you've got kind of a choice of which, set of levels you're going to complete, like, which, the one that you choose last, like, you're going to see the most of. And then also, like, you're going to see the final form of that boss, basically. So, like, there's... you're never going to see every level in one playthrough. You can kind of mix it up and see like different combinations of levels, basically, depending on how, in what order you choose to tackle them. So these are good ideas, like it keeps, because like one of the problems with, say, like the TNMT Shredder's Revenge game is that like it's way too long to actually be like a game that you sit through in one sitting. Like you just get bored of it way too quickly. So like this is a kind of a good system, I find, to keep it short, like under an hour, and then you're done, and you're pretty happy that you got to spend, you got to the end, and like it's a good system. But yeah, like I feel like the less you know about the references, the better. Like they're just kind of cringy. And also, like sometimes there's a little bit of like it seems like maybe this game was not as popular as they had hoped. Like there's no game fact on it. there are a few people asking questions online, and you get various answers. I actually, like, when I chose the set of levels that has the Jimquisition as the final boss, like the final form is a take on Shredder, like that scene in Turtles in Time,
so
where you
this
have
is
to
a
throw
reference to a reference.
Yeah, so you have to throw the enemies at the screen, because like the Jim is shooting at you from, some sort of robot thing, I guess. But anyway, like, it's like Turtles in Time. But in Turtles in Time, like, it had established that you could throw enemies towards the screen. And so it made sense that you could do that. Eventually, like, you could figure out, like, okay, that's how I damaged a boss. In this game, what's established is that you got to, kill the enemies using your special move that makes them explode and that gives you money. Like, that's all, like, that's literally the most important thing to understand about the game. But when you're fighting that boss, you have to do you have to not do that. You have to do the opposite. You have to kind of beat up with your regular combo the enemies, and then, like, they kind of turn grayish, like, or like they're out of life, but they're still on the screen. And while they're in that state, before they disappear or explode, you need to hit them one more time, and that sends them towards the boss. Like, it does the thing where you send them towards the screen. But my character was literally kind of too slow to, like, as the Shovel Knight guy, like, he was too slow to get to the enemies before they disappeared from the screen. So it was very challenging. And, like, like, Karen also wasn't figuring it out because she was playing the game well, because she was killing the enemies the correct way that the game had taught her to do the whole time. So we just, like, were so frustrated trying to figure out how to beat that boss. And, like, how do you throw? This game doesn't teach you how to throw enemies at the screen. And it's just, like, for this one level, there's this one thing you have to do different when you finish off the enemies. You have to just let them lie on the ground for, like, half a second, and then, like, hit them once more, and that does the thing. So anyway, so it was fun, but it was frustrating. Also revisited River City Girls, which, like, it's always been obvious that it was trying to be Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
But so for some reason, like, it struck me even more now. Like, I was like, how desperate is this game to be Scott Pilgrim? And
it is like, aggressively Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, and fair enough. I mean, like, Scott Pilgrim, the game, is very aggressively trying to be River City Ransom. And so, like, it's kind of when you're playing, like, I think they're coming up with, like, the board version of the mobile version of Monopoly. It's like, it's when you see Words with Friends by the Scrabble company at a Target. Like, it just, like, it's a snake eating its own tail. Yeah. So yeah. So, fair enough. But, like, it's kind of desperate, and it's not nearly as funny as it thinks it is. The writing is not very good, and this time around, we didn't remember this about it. I don't know if it's because we've been watching a whole lot of anime since the first time that we played this game, but the cutscenes don't measure up. The whole, like, problem students in a high school, Japanese high school hijinks don't really measure up to whatever shonen we've been watching. I don't know. Like, it doesn't really, like, every time that we hit a cutscene, I sometimes I'm like, maybe I should let this play out. And then, like, Karen looks at me, like, pleadingly, like, please skip this. This is torture. This is bad. But the game is good enough, but I remember not loving it then, and I'm still not loving it now. And part of it is that it does the thing where the River City thing of having you level up as you beat up enemies. But in this case, the enemies level up with you. And so the enemies start out as damaged sponges, and they remain damaged sponges throughout. and it just, it kind of rubs the game. Like, what's the point then of leveling up at all? Well, it makes, I guess, like the speed stat does make it so that your character feels a little bit better when you're moving around. But then that just means that, like, at the beginning of the game, the controls feel more sluggish than they do at the end of the game. But taking down the very basic enemies always takes basically the same amount of time. So, like, what are we doing here? It's a little bit annoying. So that's my nitpick for I don't know, like 5-6 year old beat 'em ups for today. Other than that, I bought on Xbox an Asterix game, Asterix and Obelix, Slap Them All XXL, and so that's just how desperate we've become for new brawler content.
Are you an Asterisk and an Obelisk fan?
Well, I grew up with those,
okay.
those comic strips.
Yeah, like, is that like a thing?
It was more like
a French thing, kind of thing, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like it's from Belgium, right? But it's always been in French, and like I grew up with them, but it was more, like the Tintins and the Asterix were more like I inherited them from my older brother and sister. Yeah, and I was more into Spirou, which doesn't even get a middling brawler. So and Spirou, there's probably like that probably doesn't mean much for anyone, but it was like a kind of a different publisher's take of on Tintin, basically. Like he's another reporter having adventures, but maybe more like sci-fi. Anyway,
this is kind of like when I hear Europeans talk about Moomin, and I'm like, what the fuck is a Moomin? And they're like, holy fuck, how do you not know what Moomin is? And I'm like,
I didn't grow up in Europe. How's about that? Let's start there.
I'm not Scandinavian. I don't know what Moomin is. Let's start.
So Tintin,
blob. Okay.
Like there were always Tintin cartoons or comics around in the libraries when I was a kid.
Sure, there's like a new movie coming out, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that like it's a huge thing. Like I think in English, I feel like Tintin is it's a very European, or like maybe I don't know what its origin is country wise, but
it's
in the U.S. Nobody
Belgium
really
Belgian,
in the U.S. nobody really Tintin is not a big deal in the U.S.
Yeah, I know, but it's literally the only place where it's not, though. Yeah, like it's there was this weird thing where like I remember being on a forum and arguing, like Ubisoft was making the side-scrolling Tintin movie based on the game that the Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg produced Tintin movie, and someone was arguing like, why is Ubisoft wasting their time on this crap? And like, first of all, well, it's Ubisoft. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like they will make bad games on franchises.
It's probably being made by Ubisoft Bucharest or something. It's fine.
Yeah, but also like this person was absolutely convinced that Tintin was like this no-name thing, this like out of nowhere kind of like kids movie, and I kept trying to get them to understand like, no, it's huge. And,
well, so like I would say that the amount of money Peter Jackson spent on that movie might have been out of nowhere. Because they spent an insane amount of money on that movie, like absolutely irresponsible spending, but.
And now they're doing it again, so it took a while, so it probably tells you just how much time it took for it to make it back. But
hey guys, we broke even. Let's spend another $80 billion. Fuck it.
Why not?
I love it.
Yeah, but Asterix, like it. So the thing is, like, I grew up with the comics, but the video games never really made it here in North America, right? And like they weren't going to localize the games. Yeah, they weren't going to localize the games for Quebec. Like that was never going to happen. Like the games were never really available unless like maybe on PC, but I never saw anything like that. I don't know. Like they weren't a thing here. And then only much later on did I discover like, oh yeah, like Asterix had its own beat 'em ups in arcades in Europe, and I was like, wow, that's wild. Like never seen that here. Now I guess
Konami,
they're bringing it over.
Konami beat, in the vein of X-Men and Turtles. Like it was that kind of which are very well loved by American audiences. So it's just I guess would have enjoyed the game well enough, presumably, if they'd known the characters.
Right. So I never got to play that, but so Asterix and Obelix Slap Them All XXL is by Microwoods, not Konami, and it's okay. It's it's gonna tide us over until we move on to something else, I suppose. It's got kind of not motion comics, but it's taking the plot from various Asterix comic books and kind of running you through them, and you just hit a whole bunch of Romans as you go through. Really well done backgrounds, like it's hand drawn, pretty well animated, very faithful to the comic book. And I should have set it up earlier, but okay, let me look up something. Mr. Nuts Studio, I believe they're called.
Mr. Nuts?
Mr. Nuts. So they are known...
That sounds like a European game studio.
Yeah, they are known for the Asterix and Obelix video games, the Joe and Mac Caveman Ninja remake, which you forgot was a thing that existed. Okay, I'm hoping that somewhere on their Facebook... Okay, I'm going to show you their logo, and
I'm going to be upset,
see if you have the... Well, maybe not. You'll see who Mr. Nuts refers to. That's their mascot, I guess. I think that there's actually a Mr. Nuts video game, but I want to...
Yeah, from back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I especially want to draw your attention to Studio.
Mr. Nuts Studio.
The word.
Okay.
Is it
the blatant Disney
looks
sort
very
of
Disney. Yep.
Word mark?
How is this legal? Anyway, so that's all. Like I was just like, wait, what? They can't do that?
No, they can't. They just haven't been caught yet.
Yeah. So the Mr. Nuts logo has like Studio written and that classic Disney font, very recognizable.
From when Disney used to have a thing they called Disney Studios, which is today, which they currently do.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I think they literally just copy pasted it from. Oh.
Yeah. So I'm playing that. It's nothing like. Don't go buy this game. It was like $6 on Xbox during a sale. I'm happy about the purchase, I guess, just because I don't know. Like I've always wanted, I guess, at some point to try out these games. But like if you don't know the character, you're not gonna get much out of it. And in terms of slapping some Romans around, there's no. It's one of those brawlers where. Kind of feels like you're not hitting anything, like you're swinging in the air, and I guess like the enemies in front of you are taking damage and eventually croak, but there's no kind of feedback, when you're hitting someone or when you're getting hit. Like you have to pay attention to your life meter because like you will be taking damage and not really know where it's coming from. So beautiful brawler, but not really a great game. Like it's not a lost gem or anything.
But hey, it's an Asterix and Obelix game that's not in 50 hertz.
Yeah, and final thing I'm gonna say, I'm still not done with fricking PowerSlave Exhumed, and there are some blemishes that are coming out as I'm playing through more of the game. It's still a lot of fun, but there are technical problems that I'm not sure if they're just the way the game is, or if this port is problematic. But sometimes some items, the equivalent, this game's equivalent of barrels that explode, or things that you shoot to find power-ups behind them, or even enemies, or their projectiles, will just disappear, not show up. They're still around. They're still shooting at you. They're coming for you. They're going to kill you. But you don't see them because they flickered out of existence, and flickered out of visibility, but they still very much exist. And sometimes, like, it happens in some levels, and sometimes it doesn't, and I haven't figured out what's causing it. Like, if I'm doing something that sometimes makes the game unbuggy, but then, like, eventually, like, it gets buggy again, or what. I haven't found anything online about it, but it's kind of annoying, because being able to see the enemies that you're shooting at is kind of an important part of the first-person shooter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Important, like the first person part of that does speak a lot about visibility.
Yeah.
Implicitly, at least.
So that's it for this week.
Slap them all XXL.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, what have you been up to?
Well, as I suggested last week, I have run through at least the credits on Mameda and Bakeru for Switch, so the Good Feels stand-in for Goemon, which I had quite a few months ago now, but I just started off with the Retro Game Challenge compilation, which I got at the same time, in the same order, because we got them physically. And, that kind of took precedent, and then it took me a while to kind of come around to a good spot for it. But, this has been a good spot for it. I kind of touched on this last week. I think, I wouldn't say it's, tremendously absorbing or kind of uniquely enjoyable or whatever, but I think it's very well suited for portable play, casual play, in line with, to a fair degree with some of the stuff that Good Feel has done for Nintendo in terms of not being very, terribly challenging, kind of emphasis on, being quite pleasant, some clever kind of design going on, but nothing too kind of advanced. And so, you've got a lot of that same template, but here it's manifesting in what is, for the most part, kind of a 3D platformer. Now, there are a number of sort of cases where they kind of diverge from that for some stages that are kind of races, some stages that are like, rail shooter kind of stages as well. Those are There are not terribly many of those. And then, of course, the giant boss battles that I mentioned last week. But the core of it is kind of 3D platforming. And I'd say, if you're trying to sort of draw a comparison with, Mario 3D platformers in particular, it's most similar to, like, the 3D Land, 3D World. But I'd say a number of the stages are not as kind of compact and guided as those are. Some are like very directly patterned on stage types from Super Mario 3D Land and World. In particular, like, certain ones in 3D World I can think of where, like, there's one where you're kind of going through and there's almost like a Bowser's like military parade, and it's got kind of a 3/4 perspective and it's force scrolling. Like, they have levels in Mameda and Bakeru that are really similar to that, like very directly patterned on that, where it's more sort of compact, more guided, and I think those generally tend to be the best in this. Like, the best levels here, I think, are the ones where it's like, no, it's not the same as Kirby's Epic Yarn or, WarioWare Shake or any of their sort of Yoshi, kind of stuff where, it's literally side scrolling. But when you kind of rein it in a bit, I think the formula of like, okay, it's pretty easy to see the end of the level, but, finding all the various kind of additional objectives is where some of the interest lies. Like, I think when you have these more compact levels, it kind of narrows down the process of, it's not going to be so much of like, oh, let's just cover a bunch of space to find things. It's kind of like, okay, you've got a pretty contained area in which things could be. So how could they have hidden something? What's a logical thing to kind of look for here? Or like, sequence stuff, right? Where it's like, okay, well, if I kind of jump over here now, it might kind of block me off from being able to check the whole thing. So just kind of being thorough, being careful. You played a lot of these kinds of games, New Super Mario Brothers, the Good Feel games themselves. You get a sense for this kind of stuff. And that really still works in the more compact levels in Mameda and Bakeru. Some of the other ones, though, are more open. And they kind of, for me, I think they fall into a little bit of unhappy kind of space of, you know, they're not as, say, large to explore or kind of interesting as something like in a, you know, a Mario Odyssey, where, you know, that was built around bigger worlds and there's loads of different moons to find and, you know, things you can do in those. These sort of more like playgrounds unto themselves. And then the smaller, compact, very, you know, specifically crafted, you know, small levels of 3D land or 3D world. Like there's some of these levels in Mameda and Bakeru are in between there. And you know, it's not, I don't think it's like they're completely without fun. And I think running through them once can be enjoyable enough. But where I've kind of really questioned it is the notion of coming back to those to find everything. You know, like with those narrower stages, a lot of the time you're more likely to come out of there with either all or almost all of those sort of extra collectibles. But also, I could much more imagine, okay, let's go back in there and, you know, just see if I can find that extra one or two, for instance, that, weren't there. You know, I didn't get the first time. With these bigger ones, that's a less appealing prospect because it's kind of less obvious, right? The particular sequence of like which, because usually there's a sort of order to it. So, okay, you missed they've got like a couple of different kind of types of collectibles here. You've got for each stage, which represents a different area of Japan. You've got like 3 like capsule toy type things, each of which has like a sort of memento from that place. The first one is always like a pennant for the place, and then a couple of things. It might be like food that's you know, kind of associated with that place, a delicacy, something that's made there, all this kind of stuff, which obviously a lot of this stuff is going way over my head. There's the odd thing that you can recognize from, you know, kind of having been referenced in other video games, like it's those sweets that influence Starbits, you know, or it's Dango from Monster Hunter, essentially, from my point of view. But most of the time, obviously, this is, especially with all the text just being in Japanese, and a bit like what I said about Starfy last week, or whatever, you know, like there's a lot of text here that's not desperately important. It's just, you know, for flavour, you know, to communicate the story, you know, probably try and maybe, you know, kind of charm younger players with the characters and stuff, but it's all very input friendly just for playing through the game, which is not always true with Goemon games, with actual Goemon games. Some of them are not very input friendly at all because they have very adventure game kind of elements, right? Where it's like you've got specific like fetch quests or dialogue options that you've got to kind of, activate properly in a sequence between like dungeons, action levels, impact bosses, like that might all be there, but sometimes, you know, certain games on Super Famicom, or, you know, the first one on N64, if you like, that did get localized, but if you're trying to play the Japanese version, you know, like you'd be having trouble with that. This is all, you know, I had absolutely no problem going through to the credits with this. Just, you know, you are losing quite a lot of what's meant to be the charm of the game, I'm sure, you know, but, you know, mechanically, you know, and accessing the content, it's not really an issue. So, you know, you have these collectibles, but like, I just feel like compared to a Yoshi's Woolly World, compared to a Kirby's Epic Yarn, the prospect of going for 100% is just less appealing because it is, you know, like I said, you've got a number of these levels that just kind of are more spread out. It's more like you kind of just go and find, you just go through there. It's not as structured and more of a kind of, you know, it's not this, but it's more similar to the older kind of, you know, Mario 64 Banjo kind of era of like, here's a space, just find some stuff in it. Which, you know, like I said, it just, that's okay the first time, but I can't imagine playing through it that, you know, subsequent times. And they do, each level also, to be fair to it, although it's always actually quite it's very easy to achieve this. The actual end goal has to be kind of unlocked, right? So it's like the end goal is always this taiko drum, sort of, at the end, but you've to be able to kind of, actually activate it, you've got to find 3 lanterns, but they're always like very conspicuous, and there's actually usually more than 3 to get. And so it might just be, here's a big enemy that's glowing. If you kill it, one of the lanterns appears. Or, here's a big glowing spot on the ground. You just, you could do a double attack on that and it comes out of the ground. You do it there. So technically that's like the most basic level of sort of accomplishment you have to have with these levels to just clear them. But that's, which is, slightly different from just getting to a flagpole in a 3D world level in Super Mario. But, I guess there's something there, but it's pretty simple. Anyway, so yeah, I'd say, for me, if I was kind of, it's ambitious in its own way. In some ways, like I said, it's not trying to ask too much of the player and stuff. But, if you're looking at it compared to some of Good Feel's other stuff, it is kind of ambitious because, you are going more into 3D, you are actually having a bona fide, like 3D platformer. You have got these different styles of play, as I already mentioned, with the shoot 'em ups and the racing and all that kind of thing. The boss battles. So, there's quite a lot of ambition. I would say it might be better just to rein it in a little bit. I would say another point of comparison to make would be, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. That being a first time in 3D for Kirby. And the way they did that was very much like a 3D world kind of, design philosophy. Keep it relatively confined, keep it so that kind of balance that you had in things like Planet Robobot and Triple Deluxe and whatnot, of like, okay, yeah, the levels are kind of interesting enough to run through, and it's they've got extra stuff to find that's kind of interesting to go back and get all of if you want to. Like, that balance still held up pretty well in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, even though it's adding the complexity of 3-dimensional levels. I know some quibbles about like the clues and things for like finding some of the Waddle Dees. Like, could they have given you them more quickly rather than it kind of seemed like they were almost wanting you to like go through the stages more times than maybe, you needed to and things. But overall, I think that worked out really well. And yeah, I think that might have been beneficial here. Like this, it's quite a lot of levels, it's got to be about over 60, something like 60 unique levels. There's definitely some reuse of themes and location, similar locations, there's certain things, but, this sort of, goal to kind of represent like each part of Japan in a level in some way, and stuff like, it seems like that was, pretty crucial to their concept of it. But I'm sure they could have achieved that by still having some of these more kind of linear and kind of structured levels. So those really are kind of the highlight of the game. And I would say, it would have been nice, not just to have a few more of them, but then maybe if you did, it could have given you the chance to scale up the challenge a little bit. And that would also apply to those impact style boss battles as well. Like, they start off very, very gentle. Like, they're there, and I guess, it's something to get to grips with, especially people who wouldn't have played, going on back in the day, not necessarily expecting these or anything, to kind of get, okay, this is kind of very slow, somewhat punch out kind of fight. But they're really, really easy at first. And then by the end of the game, the last couple you fight, it's like, okay, this is more challenging. This is more, I'm kind of getting into this, but then that's it. Like, there aren't any more. And it's like, you could have either had another one or two and had them be, or maybe just, start ratcheting up the challenge sooner, I think would have been, probably, for my taste. But I guess, who is this for, right? Well, it's definitely not for me, because I can't even bloody read the thing. So that's fair to say. It would be very unfair for me to ask the game to be tailored for me when it blatantly isn't. But, I guess the other part of it is, like, when you are kind of like trying to make a Goemon style game, you haven't got the official, kind of blessing of Konami. You bringing it out yourself. I assume they're kind of aiming at a little bit of a younger audience. That's generally the kinds of people they've been making games for when they've been working with Nintendo. So there's that part. It's like, that's their kind of competency these days. But also like where they took it. I mean, I guess you've got to take it somewhere different because again, you didn't have the rights to do an actual Goemon game, but it definitely feels like a little bit cuter, a little bit safer. Like Goemon's just weird. Like when you go back to those games, especially when you don't know what's being said in some of these things, like it's just, kind of, if you could draw a parallel, which has a good feel connection, is a little bit like the difference between, kind of Wario Land 3 and 4 Wario and Wario Land Shake It Wario. Like, with Wario Land Shake It, the hand-drawn style and all that, like, it's gorgeous. It's a great looking game. There's nothing to criticize there in an absolute sense. But it's definitely a little less of that kind of anarchic, weirdo personality that the older games had. And I feel like that's a little bit of what's happened to and again, it's not the same because they couldn't do Goemon the way he was because they would have got sued or, so you had to do something different. But it does feel like, you got your little Tanuki character who transforms into this kind of something that's similar to Goemon, but again it's kind of like younger and cuter looking kind of character, and then you can take on these different forms which kind of depend on having a magic meter active, which does kind of at first, before you get access to some of these different forms, you've got a little bit of a Kirby problem. You've got these enemies and they're kind of cute. And it's like, they're just doing their own thing. Like, why would I beat them up with my Tonfa style drumsticks? But it kind of becomes more clear later on. It's like, oh, well, when you beat the enemies up, even if they're not particularly threatening you, that like feeds your magic meter, and then the magic meter is what you're kind of turning into these other forms are, and they're, generally you're going to want to use them a lot because they just make everything faster. Like you've got like a sumo armor, which just means anything that involves beating stuff up goes way quicker. You get like these like dual wheel fishing rods, which can kill groups of enemies really quickly, and then you get dual pistols, which can take out enemies that can attack from range or in the air way more easily than the other. So it's a little bit, it's not like hard, like Metroid Prime style delineation of like, okay, pick the purple beam to kill the purple enemies, but it is very much like certain forms are much more efficient at killing certain kinds of enemies. And luckily the switching is very fast. Like you hold the back left shoulder for a moment and an overlay appears. But I mean, if you know which one you want and you're pressing it quickly, that overlay almost disappears as quickly as it appeared. And then it's the action doesn't even come to like quite a full stop. It kind of like slows down and then speeds back up. So that doesn't really interrupt gameplay too much. And because of how easy it is, it's not that strictly necessary to keep that, because it isn't like a Metroid Prime situation where you literally need the correct thing to kill it. It's just sort of advantageous rather than essential to have specific forms for specific groups of enemies. That doesn't harm the flow of the gameplay, and it's kind of fun to mess around with those different, kind of versions of the character, as it were. But yeah, it's all kind of a little bit younger, a little bit safer feeling. But I mean, look, you got to try and sell it somehow. So I guess that's, kind of how they were trying to sell it. And it still does seem like it's got quite a lot of personality. Although I'd say aesthetically, there's nothing in it that kind of really distinguishes it the way that some of the side scrollers have had, the hand-drawn graphics of Wario, the fabric and handicraft kind of themes of Kirby and Yoshi. You don't get anything that really kind of, it's just a kind of, it's got some style, it's got some flourishes, but it does kind of feel like a more ordinary kind of aesthetic, I guess, by virtue of having to do, a 3D world and all that kind of stuff. And technically, it gets the job done. I mean, it feels like it's got quite a free floating frame rate. So, like, maybe it can go up to around 60. And some of these more kind of contained areas where there's not as much going on, but when they open it up, as I've already mentioned, and maybe have quite a lot of enemies, right, then it'll be a bit slower. Nothing in terms of dips that's really going to affect the gameplay terribly much, because it's not that demanding in the first place, and also the dips aren't that bad, but it is just, kind of feels like a choice that, maybe you could have just capped it at 30 and it would have been, more stable at least. And that would have been fine, because it's not like demanding, the most precise inputs from you anyway. But the way they went, I think, is also adequate from a technical level. So yeah, overall it hit the spot. I quite enjoyed it. Other than, I guess, just that feeling of like, especially because it hasn't been a Goemon game, that the most recent one I played, and I believe it was the last one that they did, was the DS game from the mid-aughts. And then, before that, you're talking about N64, Super Nintendo. It's difficult for them to kind of fully capture the kind of, feelings of some of those games, because obviously games generally were harder back then. I mean, that's just the way they were as well. And especially Konami made some incredibly evil games, around those. So I don't know whether any of the Goemon games would really reach the full on difficulty of some of those. Cause I mean, I played most of them like Virtual Console. And yeah, would I put them up there with like the toughest that like Castlevania had to offer or whatnot from that time? No. But they were still, they were a fair bit more difficult than this. So yeah, it's a kind of a shame that it couldn't work out as a Goemon thing or something that could have got localized, but neither, am I going to say, it's some tragedy that it's, that fewer people are going to play it because it's, again, similar to what I said about Tosei's Starfy games last week, kind of inessential, but as someone that's played a lot of Goemon games, like I have, there's just the curiosity factor on top of, solid, enjoyable gameplay that kind of made the whole thing worthwhile. But, I doubt I'll be like going for 100% the way that I might have done in some of the other good feel games for the reasons that I've already mentioned.
That makes sense. And yeah, I part of me wants to just import this because I do like good feel games, but I don't know. I don't have the same affinity for the we'll use the phrase source material that you have, so I'm a little bit torn on it. But
yeah, I'm sure I've mentioned it on the show before, but like it's with Goemon, it's simultaneously something that does go back to my childhood and doesn't, because it's like we didn't actually own any Goemon games when I was a kid, but it was it was simply a case of like you'd see them reviewed in the magazines. And like they talk about them and review them very well, but it was always like, I don't know. It seems like that amount of Jap. We imported games. We dealt with a certain amount of Japanese text, but that amount was like, that could be a bit too risky for the kind of sums of money. So it ended up being a series that I didn't play until the days of the Virtual Console. And then I just ran through a whole bunch of them and then started buying cartridges like, N64 cartridges, the DS card and stuff. So yeah, it's, it's something I really like, but it's not like, I grew up with these. I love them intensely. That kind of thing.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll give it a shot when there's nothing else going on. Or Greg, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that'll be it for new business this week for me. I was just going to decide what I'm going to sort of move on to next, really. With picking something to play, like I said, because that was like a thing on the backlog, as I already mentioned, with having got that at the same time as the Retro Game Challenge kind of compilation that I'd already played through. So now it's like, well, I've still got plenty more. I'm not let me kid you about how much stuff is there, but yeah, picking something to fit the moment is not something that always comes easily to me.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat lately, which is why I've not really had much to talk about. Like I had a multi-hour plane flight and I still just fumbled through stuff and was like, nothing. So I don't know. We're in that weird doldrum phase too of the console life cycle where stuff's still coming out, but it's not like there's not a ton of exciting stuff coming out. So this could be go clean up things you missed early in the console's life, but you have to be kind of reminded those exist somehow, and a lot of times that's like a sale or something. So, yeah, but hopefully in the near-ish future, we'll have a little bit more to talk about on that front, but yeah. All right, so I got a couple things I want to touch. This is some business to handle. First off, emails. Send them. Send them. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Again, rfn, the letters, @nintendoworldreport.com. I know we live between your ears, in your brain. You can't get rid of us, but we are not legally allowed to read your thoughts in order to translate them into content. And you're going to hear us anyway. We live here. So go ahead and email it to us. So at least it's content you control. That's right. This is your ability to influence what you hear on the show. So rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You can make the show sillier or you can make the show more serious. You have that power. I mean, we still have to pick your email, but I mean, you have the power to at least influence that outcome. So send your questions. Also, we haven't done a retroactive in a while. I know we had some carryover from the last one. Do you guys just want to pick up? I know we had like one or two that we had walked away from when we did the last selection cycle saying like, these might be the next ones. And I've got them buried in my notes somewhere. Do you guys want to start talking about retroactive at the end of the summer?
I mean, if we want to do Milon's Secret Castle so badly, that's fine. Let's do it.
Absolutely not. All right. Let me go dig out my notes then. See what the number 2 option was. It was so we went with the 7th guest because we're fucked up. I have the suggestion.
runner-up was Moon.
Yeah, let's do something actually that good now.
The runner-up was Moon. All right. Well, we'll discuss it. But if you have any thoughts, you can send them our way. Like, if I say thoughts, like, if there's something coming up that's got like a pressing anniversary or is tied to an upcoming game coming out that we might not think of, that might be a good one to shoot our way. Just let us know what your thoughts are and give us some ideas. But the last piece of news, music. Greg, what music are they about to hear to conclude this episode that is taking place between their earlobes?
Well, I've been hanging on to this request for a little bit, trying to find an apt occasion. We've got a few things here because this is a game that is on my backlog. I have a physical cartridge, but I've yet to get around to playing it. Kind of one of those cases where, because you hear good things about something, it actually ends up being some minor impediment to starting it instead of an encouragement, because you're like, well, maybe I'd like to spend a bit of time actually, put the headphones in, actually listen to the music and, more intently and all this kind of stuff, but I've not got around to it. Secondly, it's also somewhat from the listener in question recommended as a potential retroactive game. You've just brought that up. But also, more to the actual impetus for me to use this, even though I've had it on the books a little bit, was mentioned recently the Theatre Rhythm DLC sale. And so, I got those DLC packs, and this particular song that was requested a while ago is one of the songs in those packs. So it was Voodoo, a long-time listener, who requested Weight of the World from Nier Automata, which is certainly, I know, seems to be one of the endings. So I know the Nier is famous for having multiple endings.
Like 6.
Yeah, so I don't know how it fits into all that kind of picture, and I guess I prefer not to know until I actually get around to playing that Switch card. But yes, it was mentioned, that it's a great soundtrack. It's got lots of good choices, and there's quite a few songs, not just from Nier Automata, because there's also some from the previous Nier games and stuff, but in that Theatre Rhythm pack. But that felt like, I just play through this DLC, so I was like, oh, I recognise this. It's that request. Okay, this is the sign. It's time to do it. And
nice.
Obviously very, very well suited to closing something out, as you would imagine.
Cool. All right. Well, now it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.
gonna shout it loud, even if I would.